Hey, EduMatch, what is up? This is Sarah here. Thank you so much for joining us. So follow along with us on Google Plus at tinyurl.com/tweettalk66, as well as on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of EduMatch, if you want to be the featured person of the day, sign up at edumatch.org and we will get you connections around the world. You can also there find our social media graphic designed by the awesome Rachelle Pearson, and you can get in on all the goodness through our podcast, which you're currently doing right now, through our Voxer group, our Twitter, our Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. So it is awesome. Check it out whenever you get a chance. So tonight we're talking about one of our favorite topics, which is design thinking. So this is actually the third time that we are talking about it. And tonight is going to be special in that all of the questions have been crowdsourced and they have come from the EduMatch community. So shout out to all the EduMatchers. And we have some wonderful EduMatchers on panel. So we're just going to introduce ourselves, going from my left to my right. So we'll start first with the awesome Brian Costello.
Hi, I'm Brian Costello. Just want to know what I do, I guess. I do all the things. I used to teach K1 and 2 for the last 7 years. And this year I just started as a middle school technology integrator. I have a fancier title than that, but I don't use it because it doesn't really mean anything. And that's kind of it. I do a lot of other things. I write a lot. I share a lot of things, and I started up a new project that I'm working on for connecting classrooms and projects around the world called the Global Audience Project. You can check us out on Twitter at GAAP16 or our website globalaudienceproject.com.
Awesome.
That's it for me.
Very excited about seeing that project develop and come to light. It's just so amazing. So everybody check it out. Next we have the awesome educator Alexander, aka Desiree.
Hi, my name is Desiree Alexander, aka Educator Alexander, and I am the Instructional Technology Supervisor for Toutoule Parish Public Schools in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I have my own education consulting business called Educator Alexander.
Fantastic. Always awesome to have you here. And next we are going to the awesome Stacy Lovdahl. And as y'all can tell, awesome is the word of the day. So awesome Stacy Lovdahl, take it away.
Hey everybody, I'm Stacy Lovdahl at Brave Neutrino on Twitter, and I'm really excited to be here. I am a middle school science teacher, and now I am an instructional technology facilitator. You know, one of those titles. I like it, Brian, doer of things, right? For elementary, middle, and high school. And one of the things I love about that job is that I get to see the whole thing, right? And see what kids are doing all the way from elementary to high school. So it's pretty cool. Love it.
That is fantastic. Well, welcome to all of you. We have a fantastic panel here, so I am very excited to jump into this week's topic. So the very first question that we have comes from Kate in EduMatch, and she wants to know, what is design thinking and what does it look like in your environment? So who would like to start with that question? Not everybody at once. All right, Stacy.
I'll jump in and say that I was a design thinking skeptic. So I'm just going to confess right up front. Coming from a middle school science teacher point of view, and then before that, I was in industry as an environmental engineer, and we did, kind of applied science. And I'm thinking, this is design thinking. Isn't it just the scientific method? Are we putting like a new, just a new word on the same old thing? And then I got to read Launch, and I was in a book study over the summer, and I just love that book. Highly recommend it. And because of the idea that it starts with, it starts with a problem. The scientific method kind of starts with a problem and research and everything, but the design process starts with that empathy component of really trying to understand not just what the problem is, but who has it. Like who has it and why they have it, and trying to solve the problem from the person who has the problem's point of view. And then going through and creating something, iteration, something that I think that we leave out a lot of times because we're so busy in school and we have to kind of go to the next thing, but really giving kids a chance to go back and, make something, test it, and then go back and redo it and fine tune it and test it again. So that's not the typical step thing that you might see if you Google it on the internet, but that's kind of how I see it.
All right, awesome. And what say you, Brian?
Yeah, I want to echo that that component of talking about the user and what are the user's needs. So you definitely start with that person. That problem is not just an abstract problem. It's a problem that belongs to human beings that we need to figure out a way to solve problems that relate to us. One of the things I love when I was talking with I got a chance to work with Les Macbeth, who's works with the Future Design School, and I want to give a shout out to her because this is all great stuff that I learned from her. Is that instead of taking with the question of how can we do this, or we need to be able to do that, the question was always how might we, to kind of take the pressure off of we need an absolute definite right answer right now. When you start with design thinking, you're not starting with there's got to be a right answer. There's many possible right answers. And our job is to kind of get those ideas out and then iterate something. She called it the Flintstone process. So you need to start Flintstoning. You don't really have a car. You just have something with wheels that you push with your feet. So, we need to get something out there that we can get an idea for, and then, see how it works and see how we can make it better and see what kind of effect it has on our user. Because it does eventually all come back to that user and the problem that we've identified for them.
Absolutely. Desiree, how about you?
And kind of to piggyback on what they just said, when you do start with that empathy and start with not just the problem, but actually how the problem is affecting the user and why that is the problem. The second step in that is to challenge those assumptions that you may have about the user and about the problem itself. And kind of what Brian said, when you're asking, how might we solve the problem? Not just, oh, this is how you solve it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just how might we do this? Because it's always an ongoing process. So you're not really concerned with coming up with the best solution and it's my solution. It kind of takes the ego out of it because you're continuing to see how can we solve this? Why is this still a problem? How is it affecting the user? How will my solution actually affect the user? And you continuously go in that pattern.
Absolutely. That language is very important. Fantastic. All right. So going to the next question. This one is coming from Barbara Carter. So shout out to Barbara. So she's asking, how can design thinking be initiated in a classroom or in professional development? So Desiree, what do you say about that?
I think I'm going to take the professional development part of it. And I think it's very crucial for professional development because you're not just saying, this is what I'm teaching today, you need to come learn it. Or you're not just saying, this is what I'm offering, or you really, really need this. You're actually looking at it from almost like an action plan. You're looking at it from project-based learning. You're looking at it from, okay, what is an issue that you need help with? What is an issue that's going on in education? And then let's try to come up with solutions together in our professional development for that problem. So it really is a very unique way of thinking of professional development. It's more scary to think about it that way because I can't have a set plan and say, this is what we're teaching today. It's more fluid. But because it's more fluid, it's more helpful for your teachers as well because it's more personal. You're not just giving me tools. You're actually working with me to come up with solutions to a problem I actually have.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. All right, Stacy, what about you?
I'm working with a teacher who is at the elementary level and is making just starting a makerspace, and she has the support of her administration, which is really amazing. And one of the things that we're doing is taking the things that the teachers are doing already in their classrooms and trying to, so instead of, adding on to what they're already doing, we're trying to take things that they're already doing in their classrooms and morph it into the design thinking process. So a really good example is with a second grade classroom, the teacher had found something on a website that was, that fit into the life cycle unit that she was going to do with her students. And it had them basically doing a craft where they were going to use recyclable materials and make their own bugs. And it was just going to be a center, and they're going to have fun and do this one day as, just a little crafty project. But it was part of, science. And so we met with her and talked about having it be something that was part of the whole entire unit, instead of having them just do the project as a crafty kind of thing, had them actually design the bug in terms of what it was trying to do it from the point of view of the bug. So their bugs and there was a literacy component, there were a bunch of other things, but the bugs all had a place that they had to live. So their problem was, something in their environment that they had to cope with. And so that was kind of the empathy component. And then when they designed their bugs, we had to kind of create something about that bug that would help them with that. So the kids were just amazingly creative with this. And there were pictures, and then, once they, designed their bugs, we had them write about them. And they took pictures, and of course, it just turned out to be a really cool project. But it really started with something that the teacher was already doing, and we were able to weave components of it in there and create something that was, even more meaningful. I think she ended up, and the kids loved it, but she ended up really seeing how it could fit, and it wasn't really anything that was, burdensome to her classroom. So it was a really good way to have that first project start off.
Absolutely. I love that with the bug. All right. Brian, how about you?
So I think definitely what the ladies had started out with is right on point. And I would say that one of the nice things, and it's one of the most difficult things that I'm finding with middle school kids this year, is to take the onus off the finished product and put it more on the process. So when working in design thinking, yes, there's an end goal in mind, but that end goal ends up changing a lot from where you started out. You originally think of, this is going to be my finished product here. This is what I'm going to go with. But a lot of times, once you get to know who your user is and what their problems really are, you shift. You make changes, and the process is all about learning about that user, learning about the problem, finding out what happens when you actually address that problem. Do you create new problems? Have you are you developing something that's actually helping the problem, or are you just masking it in some way? And those are really important parts of the process that involve a lot of quality learning. So when I do this for PD for teachers, like we'll play games. We'll do Breakout, or we'll do an Amazing Race or something, and their goal is to finish first, or to open the box. But the reality is there's so much learning going on during the activity. It doesn't really matter that their outcome goal is to finish the race, because my goal in designing the project is actually to help them learn. It's more about that process, and that stepping back from the what's the answer kind of thing, because as you go through the process, you realize that the answer is usually not what you thought it was.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you brought up the breakouts, because I've found those to be very beneficial as well. And that's true. People go through all different kinds of steps of iteration and things of that nature to try to get to the answer. So absolutely love it. All right, great. So we're going to move on to our next question. So coming to Desiree first for this. So this is also from Barbara. So she asked, how can design thinking be integrated with STREAM? So what do you say, Desiree?
Actually, it's a lot of what Brian just said. He was answering. I was like, well, that's answering the next question too. It's like he said, it's less concentrating on the actual product and concentrating on the process. And that's what STEAM or STREAM actually should be, is making sure that the students are really aware that they understand that the process is more important than the product. Not that just we understand it and we're pushing it and, you know, kind of what we say, you know, they don't really know they're learning, kind of that thing. But with this, they actually do know they're learning. Like, they actually do know that the process is more important. And like Brian said too, that the process is more important to where the product may be different than where it started. The product may be different from what I actually assigned them. They may come up with something during the process and it changes the complete product. So using it with STREAM, I think that's how it would implement into that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And going back to Brian.
Yeah, I want to bring it right back to what Stacy said at the beginning about the scientific method, which, you know, kind of mirrors the engineering design process. And if you think about how design thinking fits within that engineering design process, they're very similar. In fact, when I first heard of it, I thought it was the same thing. You know, there are those differences, and we talked about them before, but it really does fit in really quite well, because, you know, when you're developing a project, a STREAM project or a STEAM or STEM or whatever you want to, you know, whatever your school wants to call it, you know, your focus is to get a product together, test it out, get a prototype together, test it out, see how it works. Does it do what it's supposed to do? And if not, where is it falling short? How do we adjust? How do we go back and adjust? So a great example of this, last year when I was at the NSTA, there's this amazing, I wish I remembered her name, a teacher from Pennsylvania whose kids did this project where they would identify a handful of you know, diseases, and they would talk to doctors and they would talk to patients who had these diseases, and their design process was to engineer something that helped those people live their daily lives. So their goal was to build something, to create anything, a solution for them that solved their problems that they found, that they had. So like one example of this was one year they did Alzheimer's, and they used little bits and a spoon and a piece of plastic, and they created a spoon where when you hold the button down, the cover goes over it, and when you let the button go, the cover comes off. So as you're pulling the spoon up to your mouth, even if you have, oh no, it's Parkinson's, excuse me. So even if you, you know, if you have Parkinson's and you have difficulty with motor control, you can push, you know, you squeeze the spoon, the cover's on it, nothing falls out until you release the button and bring it up to and you take a bite. So they're designing something with the user in mind. They had to, you know, follow through that process. It is extremely STEM oriented. So I mean, I think it goes right along with it. I mean, perfectly, really.
Absolutely. Kind of hand in hand. Great. And Stacy, what do you think?
So I'm going to go back to my bug project, because that was sort of that ended up being, well, it didn't end up, we sort of made it that way, but anyways, very STREAM oriented, because it started with a book. We, you know, read about the life cycle of a bug, and then the kids did their design, and from the point of view of their bug, their own particular bug, and they designed their bug to live in their habitat, and it had to overcome or have, you know, features that would enable it to live in its particular habitat. And there was a writing component, so they had to write about it and say why they chose, and it was hysterical. I mean, because they were using recycled things. So we had toilet paper tubes, and we had pipe cleaners, and, you know, things were just sticking out all over the place. And, you know, some of them, you know, there was a lot of glitter. I'll tell you, there was a lot of glitter, but it was glitter for a reason. Okay, because you couldn't just have glitter, because you had to and so we had these kids, and they were writing, the reason we have glitter is because it was to scare away predators. And so, you know, so they were writing that, and, you know, these are little kids, and they're writing this all out. So that was their writing component. And then they all went around, and there was like a gallery walk kind of thing where the kids would go around and look at each other's bugs, and talk about what they what their reasons why were for how their bugs were, and what their little adaptations were, and give each each other comments back at their tables about how maybe their bugs could be improved. So the iteration process with the whole design thinking was that they were going to go back to the makerspace with the comments in hand, and then maybe redesign their bug to be better suited for their environment for the second time around. Now, we haven't gotten to that step yet, because I think the biggest hang up, and it's new and we're working on it, is just time, getting the teachers to, and just being able to move the project along, quickly enough, and in the time crunch in classrooms is so huge. But getting to be able to go back and have the kids have a chance to say, well, you know what, I'm going to tweak this and make these bugs even better. But it had all of those components woven into it, so that it could be, so that it could include literacy, so that it could include writing. And from the teacher's point of view, it also was part of, if you will, kind of the sales pitch to get the teachers to be willing to give up that time, because those are the standards that, super tangible standards that the teachers needed to do in their classrooms. And they could really see, I mean, not that they don't value the STEAM and the teamwork and all of those other sort of soft skills that the design thinking builds on too, but they also need to build that writing, they need to build that reading. So those were in there too. So it was a really good project.
Absolutely. This is great stuff and a very rich discussion. So definitely wanted to thank all of you for being on board. We have one more question. So this one comes from Valerie Lewis from the EduMatch. No, I'm sorry, she dropped this in a different Voxer group, but for tonight. So about different resources that might be able to help people integrate design thinking. So do you all know of any resources that people could use in order to use this in their work environment, whether it's a classroom or professional development or what have you?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in and just check out the material put out by the Future Design School and also Stanford Design School. Both put out really great materials about design thinking, whether it's incorporating design thinking into your projects, or it's just how is this relevant to what we do, and in reality, it's very relevant to the work that a lot of us are trying to do in education in the classroom. So those two places are great places to look. I don't want to steal all the resources. I know other people have mentioned a couple of them, so I won't throw them out there. And one last thing, I'm going to just throw this at you, Stacy. There is never a reason not to have glitter. You should always, they don't have to justify glitter at all. Just throw it out there, throw it on the floor, and make sure old dirty carpet look brand new, like sparkly. Instead of dirty, it's just fun. So, that's a total side note, but I had to throw it out there when she said that they had to justify their use of glitter. There's always a justification for the use of glitter.
You're so funny. I think you're absolutely right. And I know a lot of people who would agree with you.
That's too funny. All right, what about you, Desiree? Do you have any resources that you'd like to share with all the viewers?
Sure. First of all, I just absolutely love the quote that you never have to justify glitter. I mean, I just think that's the quote of the night. Just put that on a t-shirt. I love it. Yes, I actually had to look up and refresh my mind of what design thinking was, and how you used it. And there were a couple of resources that really helped me out. So I don't know if I can give out links, but I'll just say kind of what it was. It was one is designthinkinginschools.com, and they have a resource tab that gives you like live binders about design thinking and all kind of really good implementation ideas. And it's designthinkinginschools.com/resources. So that was one that I thought was really good because it gave you so many resources. And then another one is 45 design thinking resources for educators. And that link is pretty long, It's from Informed Ed, capital ED. But I can try to, well, if you just Google 45 design thinking resources for educators, you'll get it. It's a really good website that has a whole bunch of different resources on there, like design thinking boot camps and all kind of really good things to help you get started with design thinking in your classroom.
All right, fantastic. Just dropping those on Twitter as you're saying them. So great, great, great. All right, and how about you, Stacy?
And I'm just going to throw my one out there. And I looked up that just to make sure I say the authors. I'm so bad with authors' names, so I will make sure I say them right. But the launch cycle, or Launch into Design Thinking. I read this book over the summer by John Spencer and A.J. Giuliani. So I think I got that right. They also have a website, and it's easy to read, and it's super practical, and it gives lots of good examples. And there's a book study going on like every 5 seconds. So if you look on Twitter, if you're on Voxer, I'm sure you can get into a book study or find people to talk about it with you. And it was just a really, a good read.
Sweet. I love Launch Book. Like, it is just such a game changer. So absolutely. Great resources shared by all of you. Great ideas. Thank you to everyone who is participating on Twitter. There's like rich discussion there as well. So definitely looking forward to checking out the transcript that will be available in about 2 minutes or so. Also, the audio from this podcast will be stripped and put on iTunes in the coming weeks. So next week, we are going to have a double header. So the first one will be personalized literacy. So definitely check that one out. That will be at our regular time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The second one will be digital learning spaces, and that will take place at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So all of you are welcome to be panelists, everyone who's on panel right now, everyone who might be watching this, everyone who's tweeting with us. As long as you are in education and you have an interest in that topic, then we definitely welcome you to be on panel. So just fill out the Google form at tinyurl.com/edumatch sign up. And from there, we'll get all your goodies, all your information to get you all signed up and ready to go. So I wanted to definitely give a shout out to Prince George's County Public Schools, which I have to say I am a very proud employee there. We are having our 20th annual Powering Up with Technology Conference. So any of you who may be in driving distance to the DC area might want to check it out. It's coming up this Saturday. It's going to be fantastic. We are going to have awesome sessions featuring PGCPS educators and also people from outside PGCPS. Also very excited for our keynote, Rafrance Davis, and our featured speaker, Tom Mulaney. It's going to be excellent. So super, super, super excited about that. We're going to have a makerspace. We're going to have a digital playground, all kinds of goodies. So it's the 20th year. We're going to do it big. In addition, just wanted to give a huge shout out to Altera Consulting. So check them out. Altera with 2 R's in Terra. So alteraconsulting.org. Got the opportunity to meet with these amazing folks on Friday and learn a little more about their organization. And pretty much what they do is that they help educators connect globally by setting up travel programs where educators can go and visit educators in other countries and focus on specific things. So I thought that was really cool. So definitely wanted to give them a shout out as well. So if you want to subscribe to our podcast, check it out at bit.ly/EduMatch podcast. So thank you for joining us. Can't wait till next week. And everyone have a fantastic evening.